All right. Well, I just started recording. Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephanie Delgado, and I am the Education Manager here at Hayes Software Systems. I'm really excited to get to talk to you today about the TIPWeb-IM audit piece of the application. As you have probably seen, is we have broken it out into 3 different sessions, and you should see that on my screen. If you could just either unmute yourself or let me know that you are seeing the agenda for today. Oops, and now it.
I'm seeing it.
Perfect.
Got
okay.
it.
Wonderful. It kind of shifted on me there. Great. So let's just give me a moment, everybody. As soon as I did that, my screen. All righty. Sorry about that. And are you still seeing it presenter mode? Probably not.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great.
I can see the screen.
The regular screen?
Well, with the document that you have posted.
Okay, let's see here. I'm going to exit out really quickly. Bear with me. There's my other slides. Don't give it all away yet. Let's see here. Technology, right? There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Let me go ahead and just pull up my screen one then, and I will leave it. Oh, let me add another person real quick. There we go. And that may happen throughout as we're getting started. There we go. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and leave my PowerPoint as is. Hopefully everybody will be okay with that. All right, everyone. So as we are going to get started, I did want to talk a little bit first about, this is definitely an unprecedented time. I really appreciate each of you hopping on the session and, just being a part. I know that there are probably other things that you are kind of looking to at the moment, right? Earlier in our conversations, we were talking about distributions and, what is it going to look like here in a couple of months? Are we going to be collecting those items and auditing? And I'd love to hear each of you, that would like to share if you, throughout the session want to kind of talk about what you guys, if you've even had this conversation first. And what that may look like for you. So I appreciate you coming on, but the one thing we can do is we can prepare and we can prep for what that end of the school year will potentially look like. Is it going to be the end, sometime in summer time frame? Maybe, maybe not. It may be September that we really are starting to do these pieces. I know that a lot of things right now we're still a little up in the air. Some of us were talking about initially at the start of the session, right? So again, thank you all for joining. And I do believe that each of these pieces is going to be quite helpful as you are trying to figure out your next steps. So let's go and get started with what are audits. Audits are a process where a district requests that a campus examines and then records and then will officially verify their inventory counts for the district tracked items within the TIPWeb-IM application. Now, the physical count of those materials is one, and really the only way to verify, the validity of your information is that physical count. And, just ensuring that what you have in the application is true to what is actually out there within your district and your campuses. Now, I kind of mentioned at the very beginning, there are several helpful documents and I actually have a support center page that I'm going to be launching that will include those as well as quite a few additional documents to help you through the audit process, but then all of those pieces kind of surrounding it, as we were just mentioning, the closings, even prior to that collection of your materials and so forth. So just some of them will be like the TIPWeb-IM Audits, district and campus document, as well as the end of year document for district, and then the closing or end of year document for campus level as well. So just know that those resources are out there for you. Definitely, I think this for today and the next couple of days, some great conversation is going to be really what's going to be beneficial for all of us. So I am curious. I kind of reached out and asked a couple of individuals earlier is what are you looking to gain from these sessions that we have, the audit series? Are you already doing audits? Will this be your first audit? I'd love to hear from a couple of you.
This is the first time that I have ever looked at any of it. We only took over textbooks management this past fall.
Okay. And what district are you with?
This is Chesterfield County Public Schools in Virginia.
Well, welcome. Hopefully we'll give you some good insight. How about anybody else?
It's our first year to do a full audit. Last year, we had just taken over, and so we allowed just a grace. We didn't reconcile anything with what they were supposed to have. We just had everybody count what they did have so that we had an accurate starting point moving forward. So that's what we did last year. This year will be the first year that we actually use the numbers from last year and track any losses.
Wow. Okay. And then potentially you may even have some gains, right? Some found.
Actually, we have had throughout the year
already.
Found some things, yes.
Yes, it's funny how they get kind of feet and they walk into closets, into storage cabinets, right?
Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. Anybody else want to share? That's okay. If not, we'll have lots of opportunity for conversations. Thank you both for sharing that. I really appreciate it. All right, I'm going to minimize here. All right, everybody. So, hey, let's talk about really what we will be covering in these sessions the next 3 days. Now, I will tell you, it's wonderful that you're all on this first session. I'm very grateful for it. If you cannot attend any of the other sessions, I completely understand. If you can, wonderful. We will be recording every session. And that then will be placed on our support center to ensure that you, as well as anybody else, has access to these later on as we're starting to figure out what the end of the year will look like and completing audits and so forth. So let's go to start with the first item that you see on our agenda. So it's going to be session 1, which is what we'll be covering today. And that is where we are talking about the pre-audit stuff. So even before getting into your application, really is, what does it look like to prepare for an audit? What are some general best practices? And then we'll end the session today with creating an audit from the district side, of course. And we'll pause there and we'll then transition on tomorrow for session 2. So you'll see that option, the session 2 in my agenda. We'll be actually at the campus level conducting the audit, potentially doing some edits, and then submitting our audit to the district. Now, this is going to be more, of course, the campus level kind of view. I definitely recommend for district level to also be involved. That's why you see it there, because I think it's very important that all of us, even at that district level, are able to understand those pieces that our campuses are doing. And then if they have questions, you're able to hopefully answer them for you. I will tell you, of course, as you all probably know, we have a wonderful support team. So if you're stumped as well as somebody else, you know that you have support from us and you can just reach out to us. Let me go ahead and admit someone in. There we go. All right, so then day 3, we will be on our session 3. And this is where we will actually create the audit adjustments. So kind of those pieces we were just talking about, right? Where you're finding those items, so some found items, also maybe some shortages. So those textbooks or materials that you just weren't able to locate, but you were expecting based off of your quantities, right? And so that will be the end of our session for session 3. I'm super excited to get started. Before I do proceed, is there any additional comments, questions, or anything that you feel maybe I didn't mention that you did want to have covered?
The only thing on my end, Stephanie, is I registered for all 3 sessions, but I only got confirmation for 2.
Okay. Which one was that?
I believe it's 1 and 3 that I'm confirmed for, but I think 2 was the one that I did not.
Okay, is that Deborah?
But Holly,
I only got confirmation for number 1, and only today when I emailed and asked for it.
Okay, that was Deborah. Who spoke before Deborah? I apologize.
Pauline.
Pauline. All right. Ladies, I will connect with you. If anybody else seems to have had that same issue, actually, if you could put it in the chat window for me and just say, I need links. And what I could do is I'll just push out a link to everybody. It may just be simple if I just do that. How about this? I'm going to push out links to the remaining sessions to everybody that has registered. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Of course.
Yes,
Thank you
because
for bringing. Go ahead.
I had gotten I had contacted and gotten an email from Patrick, but when I looked into that link, it said that session has already been completed. So anyway.
Well, I'll definitely have to look into that. Thank you. As we're trying to figure out teams on a larger scale. So all that information is very helpful. I did actually want to circle over to the chat window. I have several people that have notes, and I appreciate that. Thank you. We're seeing that some are saying this will be our first audit, so they're fresh and just trying to figure out what audits are going to look like. New to this and have no idea how to do an audit. That's great. We're going to show you all those great pieces of an audit. And then if you're all looking at the chat window, I had no idea how to conduct an audit. Completely okay. Again, we will go through each of those pieces. I'll tell you, I was intimidated with audits at first myself, just knowing, because there's just several pieces that come into play, especially each of you at that kind of more district level, knowing which pieces are yours versus which pieces are your campus level, right? And that kind of switching between the district level and the campuses. So we will definitely walk through those pieces as well. Let us know how to support teachers calling into our textbook office. Yes, definitely that's another thing where we have great support. I know that you want to also be able to support your teachers and your staff members. Well, definitely I think this will help in the overall. We tried it once but had some issues. Okay, I hear that. And after hopefully the next 3 days, to feel more comfortable. If after these 3 days you still have additional questions, everybody, again, reach out to us. We will hop on a call and walk through it with you or anybody else within the district. So some good refreshers, first audits I'm seeing. Yes, very exciting stuff to see. So we have an array of attendees today. I definitely am excited about that. I think we can really glean some great information from each of us. So I, of course, will be here to kind of be that director of all pieces, I guess you could say. But please know that we would love to hear from each of you. All right, everybody. So I'm actually going to minimize the screen. Don't close it. That would be terrible. And I'm going to go to my screen or my slide 2. So now let's talk about preparations. Let's open up these conversations. So with this TIPWeb-IM audit series, today's session, a big portion of it is going to be these slides. So I definitely want to make sure that we're staying interactive and we're having some conversations because a big portion of an audit is your preparation. So the things that you do before you even open them up. You'll see I have some just quick little notes for us on my screen. If you don't see a slide that says TIPWeb-IM Audit Series Session 1 in orange, please let me know. But the first thing is you need to create a plan. And that plan needs to kind of establish those process and procedures. So you need kind of a true document that you, as well as anybody else within the district that is a part of this process, has that information at their hands. Also, it's for consistency. If you're just sending out emails here and there to various individuals, you can lose that general consistency that takes place. And then you have to go back and kind of try to find, backtrack in emails. I know I have to do that for various reasons myself. But what we have found is creating a solid document. And it doesn't have to be, 30 pages. It could be just some general, bullet points that you see on my screen here to get you started. But you need to start by defining the why behind audits for your campuses. So getting that buy-in, this is huge. I know as an individual for myself, how important it is for me to understand the reasons why of things so that I can proceed with something. It's, it's human nature, I think. And so if you can help your campuses to realize this is district funds, not only district funds, but this is our taxpayers' funds that we have in our hands, that we are utilizing to purchase materials for our district. And so at times we may be asked, how are you spending those district funds? Or when we want additional funds from our taxpayers, right? Going into those bonds, we probably need to be able to say how we have utilized those funds in past times, right? So that's definitely a very important piece. And I'm actually borrowing something from a recent training session. You'll know who you are, but I had somebody at the district level recently say that potentially is another staff member or another teacher if we utilize our funds as efficiently as possible and we get rid of all of those inefficiencies and purchasing items that we didn't need to. That potentially could be utilized in another way within the district, let's say. I mean, there's just so many opportunities as we start to look at ways to become efficient and to track all of those kind of the purchases that we are making. Do I have any thoughts or comments for that aspect? While I go and admit some friends, it looks like. Let's make sure. And just a reminder, if you can mute yourself, anybody. I love hearing the sweet voices in the back, but we are recording for people to be able to watch later on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize this again. There we go. All right, so I'll continue on, but again, you can chime in whenever you would like. Additionally, is setting some of those expectations and or scope of the entire project, the audit. What does that look like for each of the campus level? So as we are looking at, maybe you're only doing spot checks. And that's something that one district had just mentioned recently earlier on in the call. And so, maybe it's saying all we're focused on is student edition items, let's say, or maybe only science at this point. And so really specifying what it is that those individuals are going to need to address. What type of materials are they supposed to be looking for? So creating overall expectations and scope of what that audit will include. Also, as we're kind of talking about individuals, is their roles. First off, it's super helpful to have a point of contact at each campus. This ensures that you at that district level have an individual that you can connect with that can be the voice of that campus for the most part. That just helps so that you don't have, all the staff and teachers calling you or emailing you about varied conversations, that it can kind of be funneled up a little bit through this one point individual. And then same with you, you can potentially push out some good information from that point of contact at the campuses. Now, for those of you that have done audits, have you utilized a point of contact? Is it typically like a coordinator of sorts at the campus? Is it maybe a assistant principal? Like, have you guys so far utilized point of contacts?
Well, we have a textbook clerk or a person that does textbooks that specifically is assigned to it. They don't only do textbooks, but we do have a person to contact for textbooks.
Right. Okay. So that would probably be your initial person that you would have for that point of contact. Fantastic.
Yes.
Now, another big one. Now, of course, in the audit, you do have the capability, of course, to set a due date, right? For those that have seen it. But this is more about even maybe chunking the process for them. So even getting them kind of prepped ahead of time of saying, okay, we're going to come and do audits on, let's just make up a date, May 30th. Prior to that, so 2 weeks before that, we'll just say May 15th, you need to have, let's say, if you collect all textbooks, you need to have all your textbooks collected to one location, let's say. And so then you designate where that location is. And so then they know they have until the 15th to collect their textbooks and get them to a certain location. You could be even more detailed and say your collection time frame is prior to, and then you will get them to a location. Or if you are doing one or two things, just keeping the textbooks in the classrooms, there may be classroom sets, but you still want to audit them, giving them the time frame that you will be coming to their classrooms. Or if you will be going into classrooms and actually scanning those textbooks, maybe when students are even in session. And of course, now, current situation, that may not be the exact scenario, but in the general scheme of things, where again, it's time frame information of telling them we will be coming in, we will be scanning these textbooks on this time frame. So really defining the overall process, creating maybe some even milestones, so that your campus level individuals don't feel overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, all this has to be done by this certain time. Kind of like what we're doing with this audit series, where we're chunking it, right? Because it's important to break it out, because it is a big process, and we need to take time to kind of digest information and work through processes. So my just another recommendation with that plan that you're going to create is defining those timeframes and deadlines. And then, of course, kind of it's rolled up all in the information I've already kind of told you, is just the overall process of what you're looking at. Kind of what I was just mentioning a moment ago is, how are you planning to come in if you are going to be a part of it? I know a majority of the time, of course, we have our campuses out there actually counting, and then they submit their counts, through the campus side of the application. But if that's not the way that you do it, or it is, just making sure that you define that process for those individuals, so it's less questions and uncertainty on their part. Do you have any questions about the initial creating of a plan?
Stephanie?
Yeah.
Just remember, there's no scanning involved on the audit.
Right, it's entering counts.
Correct. Physical counts. They don't scan any books during the audit.
Correct. Yes, you're correct. Thank you, Sue, for that. Sometimes I mix up my terminology here and there. So if you can be my monitor of that, I would appreciate it. But did everybody hear that from Sue? She's correct. You get those quantities, which you'll probably want to utilize the worksheet where you can enter after those counts. And then the individuals will go and add those quantities, which we'll get to see all those fun pieces tomorrow within the application. All right, great. So then let's continue on with the communication plan. So what does it look like to communicate to your campus level? This is one of the most important pieces. Again, for them, you're going to have a little bit more kind of stresses, I think, if it's felt this last minute. That's for any of us, right? And just the general scheme of how people work is giving us time to digest information and being able to come up with how I'm going to fit into that plan that has been created. At minimum, before the audits are even open, highly recommend, maybe a 2-week in advance notice of, hey, this is going to take place. Here is the plan that we have that should cover a lot of questions that maybe some you want to add to is FAQs. Frequently asked questions for audits are. And that can always be updated as you're working through your audits. I know one district has just said that, this is going to be really the first audit after our initial last year. And so they've figured out a few things already. And most likely you had some questions that kept coming about in that first audit. And so you want to add those to your document for people to refer back to. And then kind of routine reminders and or milestone reminders. So just sending out those nice little kind of just nudges of, hey, just by this time next week, you should have this done. And give them just that piece that really needed to be done up to that first milestone. And then that way, they feel a little bit able to digest what needs to take place. And it's helping to push them through instead of last minute, right? Because, just our natural kind of thoughts are, I know I'm one of them, like, oh, I have till next week, I can wait, right? But sometimes that can hinder me or hurt me because I realize, oops, next week has already come and I'm not quite ready yet. So again, communication plan, communicating to your campuses is extremely important. The other piece I wanted to also talk about with you is the when. So when should you conduct an audit? Well, there's various situations. One that I mentioned a moment ago is, of course, end of year. And that a lot of times is more of a thorough account. Let me see, do I have? I do. Look at that. I have a slide for you. So that's going to be more of a thorough account of your items or materials that takes place, at the end of the year. And this is really where those items have already been collected or going to be collected from students and staff members. Now, there's also midterm. As you see on my screen, this is a good time to audit storage and those one kind of semester titles. A big one that we hear quite a bit about is spot audits. And this is where you can actually, you can even create a material type. And we'll talk a little bit more about material types here in a little bit. But you have the opportunity to spot check specific titles. So maybe you want to just look at science or math. You have that capability to quickly do any kind of spot checks. Sue, do you have any thoughts on any kind of the whens?
So the spot checks we usually did when we couldn't understand why they said we didn't have enough books on the campus or whatever. It's a particular title. So we would change the material type to spot audit and run an audit for that material type, just because we were trying to figure out what's going on, find out where the books all are, because we knew they were there somewhere. We just had to check off. Usually it was the high schools.
Yeah. And you know, something else I have heard a lot is districts will utilize spot checks because it helps for that end of year, right? So if campuses know they're going to have to do spot checks for certain material types and or, topics, they are a little bit more on top of it, right? And so I've heard that has really actually helped with that end of year so that there's less variance in the counts of overages and shortages. Right. All righty. So then, of course, we'll be talking about creating our audit. And this is a piece that we've already kind of talked about of where it will get to capture those material counts. It really does all start at the district. It really does. That's why I think that this is probably one of our most important pieces, is having these conversations about what an audit can look like. All right, so now some other items to consider. We are not going to dive into these pieces today, that I want to have the start of the conversation. And do know I am looking at probably expanding and doing some other sessions on the closing process. Also maybe a Q&A on the collection process. So start to look for some more of those pieces coming into play, everybody, as we are just still trying to keep some normalcy and figuring out what our next steps will be. I think a lot of us right now are saying, hey, well, I have some opportunity to look at those other processes or procedures that I'd wanted to for a while. So definitely start to look for some more of those sessions. And if you're interested in any certain type, please go to put it in the chat so that I have kind of a record of what would be interesting to you. So let's talk a little bit about those additional pieces to consider. Your closing process. So before you do audits, and this is what I actually go and show you really quickly, is clearing out your consumables. Why this is so important at the district level is when you clear out your consumables and then you create the audits, and when your campuses go and add their counts, they are true legitimate counts for consumables. So otherwise, and something else that we know kind of about consumables is sometimes campuses don't use them all, or maybe they get shared between students, and so there may be actually more out there than what you're expecting. And hey, that's helpful, right? When we're talking about kind of being more efficient with funds, So if you think that a campus only has 10, they actually have 15, that's 5 less that you potentially have to purchase for that next school year. So definitely we're going to look at where to go to clear out your consumables. And then form letters. So being able to send reminders to seniors that won't be coming back in the next year to say, hey, you had these textbooks issued out to you. We will need those back before you graduate. So there could be a specific letter for seniors, as well as a general lost textbook. So after you've done your collections and there's still textbooks that have not been able to be collected from the overall student body, you can have letters that you can send out that will kind of let the student as well as the parent really know that there are textbooks that need to be returned. Now, as Sue had touched on this, is also ensuring material types are applied and really determining what material types. Now, it's really dependent on the district and what you are trying to capture at that current time. So it could be all, as for those that know about audits, or you could hone in on a specific material type. So we'll definitely look at that as well. And then this is one that I do believe should be placed within our plan, is a location, a temporary storage. And actually Sue was one that reminded me of this, a location. If you, during the summer, a lot of times textbooks end up kind of coming back, right? Students will come say, hey, I found my textbook, here it is. I don't want to be liable for it anymore. Well, if you don't have a designated location, those textbooks kind of end up anywhere and not back into kind of your actual counts, right? Or shown that they had been returned. So I think a great suggestion and something to put into your plan is, if the offices are closed, school is closed, where is that designated location that individuals can go and put those textbooks that they have been received from students or parents? Any comments on that, Sue?
Yeah, and I remember the main reason you're doing that is sometimes they're really trying to be helpful to schools, and so they go put them back on the shelf for you. What happens is then when you go to issue in the fall, every time you scan, you get, this is already issued, this, and it'll drive you nuts. So my suggestion is to let, if there is staff that's there in the summer, is to give them a designated place. I wouldn't make it near the other books. Have a special table so that when you do come back, all you have to do is walk over to that table, scan the accession numbers on those, and they're good to go. But too many people I've seen over the years, somebody stuck them in their form, thought they were being nice, and it really slowed the distribution down.
I see. That's a great point. Thank you, Sue. Yeah. So as you're trying to distribute, it's like, oops, nope, it's still in Johnny's hands. It's like, what? It's not, it's sitting in my hands currently. So yeah, thank you for that, Sue. Is just ensuring that when you do go back to the process, so it's, of course, the accuracy of your counts, but then also it slows down processes of distributing as well. Thank you, Sue. All right. So now let's talk really quickly about the audit cycle. So as you'll see at the top of my graphic here, number 1, district creates the audit. So this is where the district is identifying which campuses have been requested or are going to be requested to complete an audit for those specified district tracked material types. And so this is where the district is going to go. They're going to create the audit. And then step 2, campus records inventory counts and submits the audit to the district. So the campus is going to go in and they're going to probably first utilize that worksheet, write in the counts as they're going around counting, and then they're going to go in and they're going to record, and then they're going to submit those counts to the district. After that, that's where it comes back to you guys at the district level, and the district will review, make any potential edits at that district quantity, and then final steps will be to create the adjustments and finalize those as well. So there is a other piece that I mentioned briefly of the end of year kind of closing. So where you're going to then process campus adjustments and process district inventory adjustments and all those other kind of closing pieces. So again, we are not talking about closing in that aspect during these sessions, but do look for additional materials And again, if you're interested in a actual live session like we're having, go ahead and put something in there, interested in end of year closing, in the chat window for me. Sound good, everybody? I think that is it. Yes. Okay. So now, hey, let's dive into the application. Steph's talked enough for you all, I'm sure. So let me drag over. Please let me know that you can see the TIPWeb-IM application.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you. And is it super large to you as well? I'm like, oh, it's quite large here for me. Okay, so I have just logged in to the TIPWeb-IM application. I am at the district level, so of course that means I have all access to all of my campuses. So just to circle back about the, the audits, the application allows campuses to electronically capture their counts, and then submit those to the district. And that's just extremely helpful in helping you with the process, right? If you had to go out to each of those campuses and do yourself, and I know some of you do a lot of those pieces, I've heard, but any chance you can get that additional help is quite wonderful. So before I dive into creating the audit, and I know I'm getting close to time, everybody. I said about 45 minutes. Hopefully you can stay on with me. I understand you all have lots going on. If you cannot, I understand that, but know that this is being recorded. So one of the things I want to talk about is material types really quickly. So as Sue and I have kind of already talked about a little bit, I'm going to go to tools, and it's under textbook tools. I have create material types and edit material types. Question, is everybody using material types at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Good, good. Okay. And the reason why I say good is, great. I got a yes on the chat as well. Thank you. We see it's just so important and helpful to have material type associated to your textbooks. It helps with some reporting and of course audits, and we'll see that here shortly. So you'll see in my training site, I have some examples of my existing material types. And so examples will be advanced placement, Braille, calculators. I even have one, and remember when we've been talking about kind of spot audits, Sue and I, spot audits. So you can create a material type of spot audit and associate it to certain textbooks that, or titles that you want to go and audit specifically. And then is it a student edition or a teacher edition, or is it just a workbook? Consumable, right? As we're talking about consumables. So the one thing that I would say before you even start audits is ensuring that you have material types. And if you want to be able to hone in on the specific material types, to go and associate those to your titles. All right. The other item I wanted to talk to you about really quickly is for the district level. Let me make sure I go to the right place. All of a sudden I had a little lag in my thought process here. So everyone, just to make sure you know, the other item I said I wanted to also kind of cover really quickly is talking about consumables. So when I first log in the bottom left-hand corner of my left navigation, I click on tools. And for closing for the district, there is quite a few less pieces that need to take place. Now, when you look at the campus level, of course, they have quite a few options of pieces that they can kind of reduce. But I'm going to go to closing here under global tools. And there are two consolidate campus transactions, but the main one that I really highly recommend is what I talked about consumables. Remove archive consumables. So this is going to give me that opportunity to, this area is designed to remove and archive consumables and all records associated. So this will clear out the consumable accounts, or counts, I'm sorry, not accounts, counts, so that when my campuses go in and then actually count them and they put in those actual counts into those consumable fields, that it will be the accurate total count for that campus. So I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I want to get rid of my consumables and click on next. And then closing, remove, archive consumables. I can right here add all. So then, as you know, with the application, usually it's going to push those items down for me, down below. If there's some I did not want to, I can always remove them as well, or all of them. And then I would click on go. And I just need to type in agree. Actually, I don't recall. Let's see if this is case sensitive. It is. Sue, you knew that, didn't you? There we go. I appreciate this letting me know what is taking place.
Do we do that at the campus level or at the district level? Do we go?
Yes, great question. This piece is only at the district level.
Okay.
And at the campus level, and actually, if you'd like, if everybody's, I'll just show you what it looks like on the campus. I know I'm a visual person and it helps me. So let me go ahead. If everybody's okay with that, I'm going to just go over to my learning campus really quick. So I'm switching over to a campus. And I'm going to my tools, global tools, closing. They have all of these pieces, changing student distributions to lost, removing archiving book history for students as well as teachers, and then removing archiving cleared students. So this is a whole nother piece. These can all, for the most part, be ran anytime before audits, after audits. The one that we always kind of say to hold off on is going to be the remove archive cleared students. Usually you want to do that at least if you do it early on, right before the beginning of the next school year as well. But again, if you do want a closing specific kind of webcast session, please make note of that. I would love to hop on another session with everybody. And I will say we do have some great materials as well. So if you kind of make note in the chat, I will make sure to connect with you and get you at least to start some videos and documentation, and then we can kind of go from there. Does that sound okay? All right, everybody. So I'm back at my district view. To switch back over to my district. Let's dive in to create that audit now. Now, one thing to note when you first come into the application, I appreciate the alerts over in my dashboard here, alerts. And even at the district, I get them, as well as at the campus, they will get them as well. So I have new campus audits, 42, in progress campus audits, submitted campus audits, and then I have requisitions and adjustments as well. I'm going to click on new campus audits, but I could also I can click here. I'm actually going to show you in my left navigation. If I go to inventory and over to the right under audits, I click on audit management. It's going to take me to the same location. So right away when I come in, there's quite a bit of things happening here. Let's first talk a little bit about the screen. So it will default to my campus tab, which is where I'm creating those campus audits. But there is also for the warehouse. The warehouse is going to be for my counts, so the storage counts at the district level. My focus for today is going to be at creating a campus level. And just know that overall the concept between the two is very similar. So the data or the information that you're going to gain from the campus audit, you'll be able to apply to the warehouse as well. So when I first come in, you'll see my training site, I have quite a few audits here, right? So I can search for a specific audit. I can do it by audit name, campus ID, campus name, date it was created and submitted, as well as due date and status. Quite a few options. If I say all, I could do quite a, I think I only have learning actually in here. Let's see. Let's just take a look here. Charles, there we go. So let me just say if I said all, I said just Charles. And I use my binoculars to search. It would hone in on all of my audits that have a campus name for Charles Bailey. So I'm utilizing the campus name here. Now, most likely it'd even pull if I did audit for an audit name if it had Charles as well. Now, if I realize that's not what I wanted, I can always use this like kind of, circle of arrows to reset my search, and it takes me right back to my initial location. And then the green button with the little plus sign, and you'll see this throughout the application, is my opportunity to create a new campus audit. So below that, we do have the opportunity to delete all new audits on the current page. So I could quickly delete all new ones if I needed to. If I realized, oops, I created those by mistake, I need to remove them, and I'm going to recreate. I can actually delete any of the specific audits that I currently have. And then, just one second, let's go through my pagination real quickly here. You'll notice that my opportunity to remove does go away once my audit goes to in progress. So it's going to only be those that are in the new status that you'll be able to delete, as you see here. In my blue grid header, it's going to give me some great information. The campus ID, name, that audit name that I created, when it was created, that due date. This is definitely important. If you have a due date and it's in red, that means that these individuals have not completed their portion or submitted their counts to you yet. And you may want to go and address that with them, right? If they submit them, you'll see that date submitted applied here. And then status of that current audit. Now statuses, this is a great opportunity to kind of see where a audit is currently. So these are all brand new audits. Nothing has taken place with them. I'm going to go ahead and shift through my pagination, and you'll see, let's see if I can do, I might have to. So then you go to in progress, so new to in progress, and then it's going to go to submitted. So if I go to my next one, and then you'll see submitted, and then what's the other one I'm forgetting? In review. So in review, after they've submitted it, you'll see here, and that means that you've gone in and maybe looked at it. It's a great way for the campus to know that you have started taking a look at their audit. And then once you have determined that everything looks good, all counts are good, it'll go to verified. Just know those details are in the supporting documentation that I have put in the chat window. But know that there is a process. They all started new. They worked their way through in progress, then submitted, then in review and verified. Now over to the right, if a audit is currently still in the status of new, so it means it's in the hands of the campus. They need to go and apply their counts. You'll see here at the district level, I do not have an opportunity to take any action or go in and edit yet. It's not until they go and submit that I can start to take action. So just know that when you first come in, you're like, wait a minute, why can't I actually go in and start editing this audit? That's because they've not submitted it to you yet. Now I have some opportunities to pull a data export of all of the data for that specific campus. And then I can pull also the campus audit report. And these will just outline here, show all, audit report filter, show all, show losses only, or show overages only. I always like to show all, but that's completely up to you. I'm going to show you this report really quickly, what it will look like. This is a PDF. And it's going to give me kind of an overview of that campus audit. So campus audit gives me some great detail about date it's been ran, the audit information, as well as campus. And below it, I will be able to see the ISBN, the title, SLC, publisher. So all that great information about the specific title, even price. Now, where the quantities piece come in, you'll see owned 250. The campus has not done their count, nor has the district done their count yet. So I don't have an audit value or an over shortage value yet. Well, the value shows negative because I've not made any alterations yet, but I'll see that for all of my campuses, for each of their audits here. So it's a nice little quick campus audit report. And then you go ahead.
You want to remind them that prior to creating your audit, because your audit is a snapshot in time, you're going to want to run closing and zero out your consumables. Correct. So that showing zero on there so that you can put in the new count.
Agree. Yes. Yeah. And that's what I just showed everybody where you go to consumables. So that piece does happen before we actually create our audit, which we're just about to go create the audit. But yes, Sue, it's super important. Otherwise, those counts could be completely off. And so it's definitely important to run the closing piece for consumables. All right, everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and dive in to create an audit. And the way I do so, does anybody remember?
The green cross plus.
Yes. Thank you. Yep, right here. Some say new campus audit. I know half the time I'm like, is it a button? Is it a... All right. So then the next thing I need to do is have my audit name. Definitely it's important to kind of come up with some sort of naming convention. This just helps to ensure that you or anybody else that comes in later on after the fact is able to understand what audit you actually were creating. So I'm going to pull over. I actually have a little naming convention I have here. So here, maybe it's my 2019-2020 end of year audit. And just for fun to make sure, I'm going to put my initials. So SD. Now, due date is not required, but it is something that is helpful for you to kind of have that visual indicator, remember, as we saw in the grid. And it helps the campuses to know what time frame. Remember when we're talking about kind of creating our plan and trying to communicate to our campuses? This is another way to help communicate to them that you have until this date to submit your counts. So for myself, I'm going to not give myself any time. I'm saying you have just a couple of days stuff. Then any notes for your campuses that you want to as well as, anybody that can come in and see this audit to kind of help, just for those coming in of what this audit is. So just end of year. That's what my little acronym is. 1920, we'll just put. Years will probably be much better and more descriptive. All right, so remember how Sue and I were talking about material types? Here is where you have the opportunity to decide, am I doing all material types, or am I going to only do a certain material or a couple of material types? And so once I select material types, you'll see Control plus click to select more than one. So maybe I only wanted to do my student editions, let's say, and my teacher editions. And I click Control and click, and I could then highlight those two here. And what's great is right above applied filters, I see what I have selected. I definitely appreciate that. For today's purposes, I'm actually going to say all, just so we can see what that looks like. But you have some opportunities. The other piece that Sue and I have talked about is that spot audit. So this is where, and actually you would need to go and associate this material type to specific titles. So remember we were talking about earlier, one, make sure that all of your titles have material types. But then if you want to actually audit or do a spot audit, let's say on your 9th grade textbooks, or maybe your science titles, you then could go and associate this material type to those specific titles that you want to then audit. And if everybody would like, after I create the audit, I can go and show you where you would go and actually update the material type, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Does that sound good? All right. So then the next piece
Yes.
is, thank you, I appreciate that, is blind audit. Selecting this option will hide campus-owned counts during the audit. This just kind of assures or encourages campus staff to complete an actual physical count instead of trying to kind of enter what appears to be what they own, right? Or what their inventory is. So some districts appreciate this, some do not. It may be that you say, I want it blind. I don't want them to know actually what counts are. I want them to go and just try to find them. Where some districts say, you know what, I actually want them to know, I expect them to find 50 of the specific titles. If they fall short and only find 30, they need to go out and be looking in, like we talked about, in drawers, in cabinets, in closets. And so it really depends on the district and what you are trying to accomplish. Because if they submit and they don't know that they're supposed to have 50 of a specific title and they only submit for 30, that's more work on you potentially to have to connect with them of like, hey, I really need you to go out and look for more because you're off by a good amount, let's say. So it's really up to the district level. I'm curious, if any of you have utilized a blind audit or have a feeling either way of blind versus not. Has anybody dealt with a blind audit versus not?
The only time that we use blind audit or that type of thing is when we're doing our inventory in the warehouse and we don't give them a count. We want to know what's actually out in the warehouse. But that's not with, audits. It's just for us to have a count.
Yeah, because you don't want to be derailed by what should be in there.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks for that.
We do it with campuses that maybe are not quite as diligent as they should be, because you can just tell when some of them are going in and just entering the number that's there.
Yeah.
Because we've gone and counted and it's not. So for some campuses that have a history of that, we have been doing blind audits just to kind of get them to make sure they're going out and counting. So
perfect. Yep. And so you might have some that are blind and some that are not.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Good. Those are great user stories. I appreciate that in the ways that you're utilizing blind versus not. And then the other option that you have is exclude items with no campus distributions. So this is, I think, a big one. And I've heard stories on both sides on why people want to use it versus not. But this is where a campus may be approved for an ISBN, but they actually do not have the title on their campus. So this will actually remove those titles with zero quantities from that audit. So there's pros and cons. Some say, yeah, but what if they find those titles and they wouldn't be able to account for them because I haven't included it in the audit. Where others say, maybe we don't care about those ones that are zeroed out. Maybe they're no longer in use, something of those sorts. And so we don't want to cloud up the audit with all those ISBNs or titles that have zero quantities on the campuses.
On elementary, Stephanie, you're going to have to leave that unchecked because your consumables will all show a value of 0. Your high schools and middle schools, if they have workbooks versus consumable, then you could use that 0 feature for them.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, definitely then, Sue, you're saying at the elementary, you'll want to keep it unchecked and you want those zeros because you're right. We just zeroed out those consumables, right?
I'm a little confused. It would exclude items with a 0 count or exclude items that had not been distributed to a campus, because those are two different things in my mind anyway.
Yeah, great question. Sue, do you want to take that
Sure.
one?
So what it means is, like in some districts, they might approve a book for all the schools just because they felt it was easier at the time just to approve all campuses and keep going. And it may be a high school book. So the elementary and middle school, it's going to have 0 every year, and they're going to get real frustrated. So what you're this is something they've been approved for. They're approved for the title, but they own absolutely none on the campus, according to TIPWeb.
So I understand that part. So my question is, if you check that box, does it exclude items with a 0 count, or
Yes.
does it exclude items that have not been approved for that particular campus? So
No, it's for the ones that they have 0 counts.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's a great question, because if the campus has not been approved for a title, it will not show for them. So that is correct.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that question. That's a good one. All right, everybody. So we're going to leave it. We don't want a blind audit. We are not excluding anything from our audit. So I'm ready to go ahead and click on my little blue button with the arrow pointing to the right to say next. So I'm going to go ahead and say next. All right, so right away, some things to look at. And we are getting close to being finished out, everybody. I know we are past time, and I appreciate you staying on with me. I'm going to talk just high level really quickly about what we see on our screen here. So I have my new audit here, selected campuses for audit. So I have my title here, and you'll see right below I have the opportunity to add campuses. So this is where I can say I only want to do some elementary schools. I only want to do a specific high school. I can decide which campuses I actually want to create an audit for. So I'm actually going to choose my Becker Elementary here just for fun. And I'm going to click on the green little button with the plus sign to add that specific campus. So now below, under the next section, campuses selected for audit, I have my campus Becker Elementary. And once I clicked on save, I would be creating my audit. Now, if I realize that, oops, this is not the campus I wanted, I can just quickly remove it from the campuses selected. I can quickly add all or any additional campuses that I would like to at this very time. So this is just the part we're going to come in and decide which campuses and or campus I'm going to be auditing at this time. So I'll go ahead and click on my little green diskette to save. And then right away, I have my new campus audit. Here's my Becker Elementary. Here's my audit name with the SD at the end. It is created today, due in just a couple of days, in that status of new. And now if I want, I could run a data export really quickly. Again, I'm going to show all, not specifically losses or overages only. This is just a new audit. Just so you can see, I haven't shown you this report yet. There we go. So this is an all-encompassing report in an Excel format that gives me a lot of information that we have already seen in that grid. But now I can actually take it here. I can do some great filtering if I need to kind of find any additional information. So campus information, the actual textbook or title information, including publisher. Over to the far right is where we've got some good information on how many are actually owned. So look, I kept my zeros in there. The campus count, so that's going to be what they submit to me, and then what my count of the district will be, and then of course the audit value, the over shortage, as well as the over shortage value. And so you'll just notice there's a lot of information that we have seen throughout, of course, within the grid. And then once we get all the way to submitted information, by and date, and then as well as finalized and some note opportunities. So this will definitely be much more beneficial as you work through that audit and get to the point of finalizing or really, going through that full process of the audit. All right, everybody. So that is all of the pieces for this first session. I do want to take the opportunity to show everybody really quickly where I can go and apply that material type. So I'm going to go ahead, just zip on over really quickly to my textbooks. I'm just going to grab a textbook here. And when I'm in my textbooks, and actually let me just back up, make sure I didn't specify, I need to search for the specific textbook that I would like. I can do that in many, many ways. ISBN, so if we wanted to hone in on a specific kind of even subject, I could do so. And then over to the far right of that specific title, I'll click on details. And then once I'm here in the tabs area in the center, I have right there in the center of the tabs too, material types. And this is where I can actually quickly add that spot check, or I'm sorry, that spot audit option right here. And just click on save. And now I have my spot audit there. And I can just quickly come and delete it once I'm done. So I wanted to show you that piece really quickly. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slides. And I would like to thank you for attending the first of the 3-part series on TIPWeb-IM Audits. Today we talked about what preparation looks like and really spent some time talking about creating your plan, what that encompasses, including that communication piece to your campuses. Also those pieces that need to take place before you start that audit, ensuring your material types and that they're associated to your titles, that you've zeroed out your consumables under closing to ensure that when campuses go in, there is an accurate account of those counts in the audit. So tomorrow we will do a quick little recap, and then we're going to dive right into session 2, which is going to be conducting, editing, and submitting your audit. So that's going to be on that campus side of the application. I'm definitely excited to get started with you all a little bit more tomorrow, and I really appreciate each of you joining me today. Please note, you do have unlimited support here at Hayes. You have our number and our email right here even. You can even grab those in your actual application as well, that little orange button usually in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and open up for any additional comments or questions. But for those of you that need to go, I just want to say thank you again. I really appreciate taking the time to spend with me today. Do I have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quite welcome.
Thank you.
So welcome. Thank you all for joining. You're all welcome. I see you in the chat window. Yes, I'll see you all tomorrow.